Hey guys, welcome back again in MUO Sigma classes. So in the last video we have discussed about Redux. So we have discussed about reducer, store, and everything about Redux almost, uh, which are required you to start Redux. So the very first thing we have discussed about the flow of Redux. So we had a great discussion on that. So anyway, we are not going to waste more time. If you want to learn Redux and how we can play with that, just go and watch my last video. I'll provide the link in the description. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a form, and in that form we will have two fields. One is the username, another one is the password. If the user is filling username and password, both field are filled, in that situation the sign in button will enable. So any one of the field is empty or not fulfilling the validation, in that situation, in that case the sign in button will be disabled. So what we are going to do, we are going to set is enable key into Redux, and by default we will give the data like false. So if suppose that user is filling username and password, in that situation will trigger a function. In that function will basically trigger a dispatch, and so through that dispatch we will update the value of is enabled true or false, whatever, and that value we will fetch into the component, and then we will update the button status on the basis of is enabled true or false. So this is the simple story about the example. So now let's get started with this amazing example. Okay, so let's just jump into this example. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one new folder, that name is src. Okay, under in this I'm going to create one new folder called login, and under this I'm going to create one new file, that is login.js. okay, and I wanted to import this view from React Native package. Okay, under in this I'm going to use text component Piyush. Okay, for now this is a simple functional based component example. Okay, so under here into provider I have this counter action. Okay, let me show you here. So this is the counter action. Under in this component you can see we have two actions, and that action we are dispatching on the press of button. Okay, simple. So like I mentioned here, counter action component, I wanted to use my component, that is login for now. So for now I'm not focusing on any of navigation file. This is just a component. I'm going to work on this component only. Okay, so let me open this login.js. I also have to import this login component from simple. I don't want to use this component. Let me delete the extra lines. Okay, okay, so here this is Piyush. So you should see that text into the screen, but before that this text should be imported here. Okay, so you can see this is Piyush. To make it simple, I am creating inline styling over here. Cool. So you will be able to see this text into the center of the screen. Cool. Going to import text input, and here we go. Let me delete this text and going to use this. Okay, so in this text component we will have a value parameter. Okay, another property is on change text. Okay, and then we have another property called style timing. Now I'm going to comment this value and on change text. Going to give font size, let's say 18. Okay, and width, let's say 80%. Okay, cool. So here you can see we have this cursor. Okay, if you're typing something, this is, you can see, we can see our text. Okay, okay, cool. So if you will increase your padding vertical, let's say 8, you can see the width of this text input field is going to be increased. Okay, let me give it 12 here, like this. Fine. And I want to remove this background color. Instead of background color, I want to use border width. First of all, you have to give, let's say 1. Border color, let's say I'm going to use a black. And here after this I wanted to give the border width, sorry, border radius, let's say 40 or let's say 12, 20. Okay, let's say 20. So if you'll go back and if you'll see, this is my text input field. Cool. So what I want, instead of doing a copy paste of this text input field 2 times, I wanted to create a separate component for text input field. So under in login only, I am creating for now function text input field. Okay, and this is a flat arrow function, and this will return our text input field. Okay, cool. So if you will go back, you will see the same output. If you want to sake it, just sake it, reload this, you will get the same thing. Yeah, like this. Cool. I don't want to waste the time here to fix the UI. I just wanted to create 2 input field, and then I wanted to create a button. So simple. Let me create a button component. Okay, const button component, and then I'm going to use text over here. I'm going to use text component. Under here I want to create this submit from React Native package only. Styling, let's say padding vertical again, let's say 10. Okay, orange. Going to use this view, button view, and I'm going to use this B capital here. So let me make like this. Okay, yep. Okay, so what is the issue? Button view, nothing is going to be rendered. Okay, why? Because I want to use this return like this. Cool. See this is the button. Okay, so I also have to give the width. Cool. Now what I want space in between all of these 3 view. So margin top, let's say 30, and the same thing I'm going to use here. So this is not a good approach. Okay, I'm just trying to maintain my more focus on Redux, so I'm just completing this form anyhow. Okay, so this is the first field. This should be a username, this should be a password, and this should be a button. So just curious to make more width of this button 15. Cool, this is fine. So username, password, and the button. Okay, so if the username and password is filled, then I have to enable this button. But if the button is enabled, then we have to show this color. If the button is disabled, then we have to show something dark color. Okay, so what we can do here, let me quickly set up reducer for this component. Okay, so here we go, and so scroll down here. Let me scroll down and let me see this. This is the counter reducer.js. This is my reducer. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new reducer here. Let me just copy paste. Okay, let me give the name login reducer. Okay, cool. And the same name I wanted to use here, login reducer and login reducer. So in this case, when I have to disable the button on the basis of one single key value, on the basis of single value, so I can play with single case. So let's say set is enable. So this is gonna my key. Okay, if this key will trigger, the case will match, then we have to change some value over here. So let me make it is enable. Okay, by default I want to give the value is false, so is enable, and then state dot is enable. So by default is enabled is false, but I'll basically make it true to false, false to true. Okay, but according to me this is not a correct approach. What to do here then? So whatever the payload which we are sharing into the action, we have to just pass over here. So action dot payload, simple. Okay, cool. So what is going to be action? So first I have to create an action, okay, and that I have to dispatch with this type. Cool. But whatever the data in action we are going to share, that data is going to be set here in is enable. Okay, so let me going to the login.jsl file. So here we have this view. Let me minimize this view. Okay, to make it simple, I am going to that counter action component. I'm going to copy these things. Okay, let me copy, and here I'm going to use those things. So counter use selector. What is this use selector? I told you earlier in the last video only. Use selector is going to be a part of this React Redux. So we have to import this line. This is going to be a very important line. So let me just use that same line. So use selector and use dispatch. Use dispatch I'm going to use for to dispatch an action, and I'm going to use this use selector for fetching the data from the store. Okay, here in app.js we have this store. So under in the store you can see, guys, I am passing my counter reducer in my combined reducer. So I have to pass this login reducer also into my combined reducer in order to access that. Okay, so I'm going to app.js, going to store, and I'm going to pass this here. Okay, so same C. Okay, and I also have to import this here at this top. Okay, so let me check if it is going or not. So let me check. Okay, this is working fine. Okay, so going to login.js, and this is, and I'm going to use is enable. Okay, is enable. Okay, and I want to see this value. So what I can do here, I'm going to make a console. So going to use effect. Okay, okay, so console.log is enable data and is enable. Okay, cool. So let me delete this input. Okay, so okay, what is the issue? Use effect is not found here, so I also have to import this from React package. Simple. So let me shake this and trying to open this debug mode. Okay, inspect console. Okay, so once this, okay, so you can see we are getting undefined. Okay, so let me use just state only. Let's see. So what are the reducer data we have available? Okay, so this is showing login reducer as expected. Wait, we just have to copy this login reducer, state dot login reducer dot is enabled. Okay, is enabled. Fantastic. So is enable. If you will try to check, you can see we are getting false here. Okay, is enable data false. Cool. And I'm going to create one action. Action name update, or we can create is enable handler like this, and I can pass my state here. That is, state is going to be a payload. Okay, and I have to follow the that type. Okay, under in the login reducer I have mentioned this set is enable, so I have to just pass this set is enable as a type here. Then only we can read this case here into this login reducer. Okay, cool. So this is fantastic. Now what I have to do, so whenever in this text input I am filling something, then I have to check is the very first text input field and the second text input field, I mean the both text input field is filled, then I have to trigger this action, this is enabled handler action, and we have to make it true, otherwise false. Simple. So we have a value and we have on chain text. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to read the property props and props dot value and props dot on change text. Okay, so here I'm going to use my value and I'll pass the value over here, and same like on chain text I'm going to pass on chain text. Okay, so now I'm going to use state. This is a hook. Okay, so under in this login component only you can create your use state. Okay, use state like this. So by default we are passing empty string. Let's say this is for username or set username. Okay, and same we have to create for password. So set password, and here we have password. Okay, so set username here, and whatever the data we are getting, that data we have to just set into the set username. Okay, same we have to follow here, but before that I wanted to pass this username. Okay, just a similar thing we have to do in this text input field, but with password. Okay, and set password. Simple. So all set here. Let me put this text input field component out of this login component like this. Simple. Okay, so here we have this username and something here for password. Okay, so if these two fields are not empty, then we have to make it is enable, otherwise we have to make it false. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one new function, const set data. Okay, here I'm going to pass type and then data. Okay, and I will be using this set data here only. This will be the username, another will be the password. Okay, and here in this set data I'm going to use the condition if the type is triple equals to the username, then I'll be using set username and I'll pass this data. Else I don't want to read even the condition, I'll use password because we have only two fields. Set password. Okay, and when I'm triggering these set username and set password, I can do what, I can create a check over here. Trigger this action with the true value, with the true payload. Okay, and because I'm triggering an action, So I have to dispatch an action. So just dispatch this action like this. Okay. So whenever the username and password is going to change, okay, so you will have to trigger this use effect. Simple. Just cut this logic, the entire logic, just paste here. Simple. Okay. Now let's try. You can see, guys, this is working, right? Piyush and then Bajpayee. Simply, it's working fine. If you are trying to delete one by one, when the B is delete, when the B will delete, then only it will disable, like this. So like this, you can, guys, start working with Redux and try to play with simple examples. That's the reason I'm making very simple example. So why we are storing this is enable state into the Redux. We can directly store into the component, then we can access it. Why we are playing like this? Why? Because I am just showing you guys how to play with Redux. Okay, this is a very simple example. If I'll take a big example, you will stuck with the logic, or maybe you will stuck how you are playing with the actions and all. So just wanted to make it very simple. And guys, this is a very often issue. I mean, people are asking me here and there, like if I'm typing something into, I mean, if I wanted to set the state in, immediately I'm not getting the data back, the update data into the state, I'm not getting that. So guys, it's a very simple approach, right? If you are trying to get that data immediately after setting it up into the state, you will not get that. Either you will get it into the return part. If you are making condition, you will get that, or if you wanted to fetch that into the logical part, then you have to use this use effect. And there are some other approaches as well, but these are, I mean, very simple approaches. These are very oftenly used approaches, so I'm just using that. Okay, so as simple as that. Let me explain again. This is a login component. This is the store. In this store, I have clearly mentioned this login reducer. This is the login reducer. In this, I have this case. If this case is matching, what I'm doing, I am just reading my payload. Either it can be true or false. I'm just setting into the is enable. Okay, and here into my login.js, I am using I'm using this use selector. Using this use selector, I am fetching my key value is enable from this reducer, and I'm using this is enable data here in this button view component to make it enable and disable. Okay, and when user is typing here in the username and the password field, what I'm doing, if you are typing anything, this function will trigger, and this will basically set the username and password into the username and password field. And if anything is changing in the username and password, this use effect will trigger. And here I'm checking if the username length and the password length is not equals to 0, and okay, this AND operator. If the username and password value, or you can say the length is not equals to 0, then we are dispatching an action is enable a handler with this true payload. Otherwise, we are dispatching the same action with the false payload. That's it. And here you can see this example, Piyush, Bajpayee. Okay, this is simple. So I hope, guys, you will like this video. If you like this video, please do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much. Bye now.